Welcome to Trending Unpacked, the show where we explore the stories behind the trends shaping our world. Today, we're looking into someone who, well, he always seems to be trending, doesn't he? Not because he's suddenly back in vogue, I mean, he never really went away, but because his whole approach to telling a story. It's still basically the instruction manual for mysteries and thrillers, movies, TV, streaming, you name it. We are talking, of course, about the master of suspense, Alfred Hitchcock.
It's pretty amazing, actually. You think about it. Born 1899, directing films for nearly 60 years, over 50 features.
Yes.
And his presence now, film re-releases, people studying him in universities, and maybe most importantly, his fingerprints are all over the stuff you're streaming tonight.
Yeah.
It's just huge. He's like a fundamental part of cinema grammar.
Totally. So our mission today, it's not just to, nod along at the name or the famous silhouette. We want to get under the hood a bit. What were the core techniques? What were the psychological ideas that make him so incredibly influential, even all these decades later?
Yeah.
We want to figure out the how. How did he build that tension that still works, whether you're seeing Vertigo again or watching some new show that's clearly borrowing his style?
Exactly. It's understanding the mechanics, the why behind his relevance.
Yeah.
I mean, he basically left us a masterclass in manipulating audience emotions, managing what they expect. And honestly, anyone making a suspense film today, they're using his playbook, whether they realize it fully or not.
Okay, let's open that playbook then, starting maybe at the beginning, his foundations. Let's maybe set the scene first. You mentioned over 50 films. An Englishman starts in the UK, directs from the silent era right into the 70s. That sheer volume, that staying power, it definitely makes him a giant. But people sometimes skip over his early stuff, the British silent films, the early sound pictures. Was he already innovating back then? What was happening in that formative period?
Oh, absolutely. That British period is, it's crucial. It's where he first started really experimenting with the language of cinema, especially around fear and suspense. He wasn't just, dealing with sound coming in. He was actively shaping how it could be used. A key one people point to is The Lodger, A Story of the London Fog, 1927, so silent film.
Right.
And it's really important because, well, it was his first proper thriller, and it introduces that theme. He kept coming back to The Wrong Man.
Ah, yeah. The innocent guy, or seemingly innocent, suddenly tangled up in something way over his head. Dangerous stuff.
That's the one. And even back then, technically, he was doing clever things.
Yeah.
In The Lodger, there's that famous shot using a glass floor.
A glass floor?
Yeah, so he could film the mysterious lodger pacing upstairs, but film from below. You see his feet moving back and forth, lit in this eerie way. It immediately gives you this sense of unease, maybe guilt, from the perspective of the people downstairs listening. So right there, nearly a century ago, he's using the camera not just to show action, but to convey a psychological state, a feeling, subjective viewpoint.
That's incredible for the 1920s. Okay, so that technical flair, that ambition, it must have paved the way for Hollywood. But it wasn't like an overnight thing moving to America.
No, not quite. The big official move, the one that stuck, was cemented by Rebecca in 1940. That was his first American picture, and bam, it wins Best Picture.
Not bad for a first Hollywood outing.
Not bad at all. But I'd say his iconic status really took root with the run of classics that came after that through the 40s and especially the 50s. That's when we get the films people really think of.
Okay, so we're talking.
Well, the big ones. You've got the deep dive into obsession with Vertigo, the spatial genius of Rear Window, trapped in that apartment, the chase, the mistaken identity, the sheer style of North by Northwest, and then something completely different, that kind of environmental psychological horror in The Birds.
Yeah, when I picture Hitchcock, it's often those big, glossy, Technicolor American films, North by Northwest, Vertigo. But even with that massive scale, you're saying he kept this laser focus on messing with the audience's heads, their emotions.
Absolutely, 100%. And he had very specific tools he honed for doing that.
Yeah.
Which brings us neatly to one of his most famous signature techniques, probably the one most people have heard of, the MacGuffin.
Ah, the MacGuffin. Right. Let's unpack that for anyone listening who might not know the term. It sounds kind of funny.
It does sound funny. Hitchcock himself liked playing with the name.
Yeah.
But basically, a MacGuffin is.
Yeah.
It's a plot device. Could be an object, could be secret plans, microfilm, uranium, whatever.
Yeah.
The key thing is, it's super important to the characters in the movie. It's what they're all chasing, fighting over, trying to get or protect. It drives the whole plot forward.
Okay.
But, and this is the crucial Hitchcock twist for us, the audience, it's ultimately irrelevant. We don't really care what the secret formula is or what's on the microfilm.
So it gets the story moving, but it's not actually what the film is about emotionally or thematically.
Exactly. It's the engine, not the destination, like you said earlier. Think about Notorious. Ingrid Bergman and Cary Grant are dealing with skies and hidden uranium in wine bottles. Do we care about the uranium itself?
Not really. We care if they're going to get caught, if they trust each other, the romance, the danger.
Precisely. Or the government secrets in North by Northwest. We never even find out what they are. Doesn't matter. What matters is Cary Grant running for his life. The MacGuffin lets Hitchcock sideline the boring details of the plot mechanics and focus all his energy and ours on the human drama, the suspense, the fear, the relationships, the psychological tension between the characters. It's a brilliant way to keep the focus where he wants it, on building suspense.
That makes so much sense. Focusing on the emotion, the human reaction to the danger, rather than the what of the danger itself. That feels very Hitchcock.
Yeah.
And speaking of impact, of changing the game, we can't really talk about his breakthroughs without talking about Psycho. 1960.
Oh boy, Psycho.
Yeah.
That film isn't just like another successful thriller in his list. It was a bomb thrown into the middle of cinema culture.
Yeah.
A genuine event. And its importance goes way beyond just, the shower scene, which everyone knows.
Right, the whole film felt different. Rule-breaking.
Totally rule-breaking. Think about it. He sets up Marion Crane, Janet Leigh, the main character. We follow her. We're invested in her crime, her escape. And then, bang, about a third of the way through the movie, he kills her off.
Yeah, which nobody expected. The star doesn't die halfway through.
Never. It completely broke the unspoken contract with the audience. It basically told everyone watching, forget the rules, anything can happen, no one is safe. And that feeling of vulnerability, that uncertainty, just cranked the tension up to 11 for the rest of the film.
Right.
You genuinely didn't know what was coming next.
And the shower scene itself, okay, everyone knows it visually, but the craft behind it is something else, isn't it? It's not just about shock value.
Not at all. It's pure filmmaking technique. It's a masterclass in editing, really. People have analyzed it frame by frame. It's something like 78 different camera setups, 50-something cuts, all packed into less than a minute of screen time.
Wow, so many quick shots.
Yeah, exactly. Quick, jarring cuts. And because of censorship back then, you never actually see the knife penetrate skin. Never. He uses montage, quick flashes of the knife, water, screaming, parts of the body influenced by Soviet filmmakers, actually.
Oh.
It creates the feeling, the brutal impression of violence in your mind. Your brain fills in the gaps, makes it way more horrific than anything he could have explicitly shown. It's achieving maximum impact through suggestion and rhythm, through pure cinematic language, not gore.
That control, that technical precision, it brings us back to his core methods. You said he preferred suspense over just making people jump, right? How did he use the camera specifically to pull us in, to create that sustained, almost unbearable involvement?
He was the absolute master of the subjective point of view, making the camera become the character's eyes. In so many of his films, Rear Window and Vertigo are maybe the peak examples. The camera isn't just an objective observer recording things. It is the protagonist. We see what they see, feel what they feel, which often means we're put in a pretty uncomfortable or even unhealthy headspace.
Right. Like in Rear Window, we're literally stuck in that apartment with James Stewart, with Jeff. We only see the courtyard outside through his eyes, through his camera lens.
Exactly. We can't go anywhere else. We share his boredom, turning into curiosity, turning into obsession, and then finally into this terrifying conviction that he's witnessed a murder. We're forced to be voyeurs, just like him. And because we're locked into his perspective, we become complicit in his watching, which maybe isn't entirely ethical, right? That makes the suspense feel much more personal, much more potent when the danger eventually turns towards him.
Yeah, you feel implicated somehow.
You do. And then in Vertigo, that subjectivity goes even deeper, arguably. He famously invented a camera technique just for that film to visually represent the main character's psychological state. We're talking about the dolly zoom.
Ah, the vertigo effect. That shot where it feels like the background is rushing away while the foreground stays put, or vice versa, that weird stretching feeling.
That's the one. To get that effect, the camera physically moves, say, dollies forward, while the lens simultaneously zooms out. Or the opposite. It creates this warped perspective, this unnatural, dizzying spatial distortion.
And it perfectly matches Scotty's fear of heights, his acrophobia, and just his general mental unraveling.
Exactly. It wasn't just a cool visual trick he threw in. It was the camera translating an internal feeling, vertigo, anxiety, psychological breakdown into something the audience experiences visually, viscerally. It forces you to feel what he's feeling.
That's incredible. Tailoring the technology itself to serve the character's inner state.
That kind of specific, motivated innovation is what really sets him apart. It wasn't just about telling a story. It was about making you feel the story in your bones, using every tool cinema offered.
Okay, so we've got the technical mastery, the suspense building, but moving beyond just the how, let's dig into the what, the themes. This is where it gets really interesting, I think. When you look across this film, certain ideas just keep bubbling up. Guilt seems huge. Identity, watching, or voyeurism, like we mentioned. The ordinary suddenly becoming terrifying. What do you see as the absolute core thematic concerns running through his work?
Yeah, there are definite recurring preoccupations. I'd agree. Guilt, or maybe the fear of guilt, the dread of being wrongly accused or carrying some hidden burden that feels absolutely central. He was fascinated by the human mind under pressure. How guilt, whether it's real or imagined, can twist people, lead to obsession, paranoia, self-destruction, that whole wrong man theme we talked about. Fundamentally, that's about the nightmare of having guilt projected onto you.
But it's often not quite that simple, is it? His protagonists aren't always purely innocent Snow White heroes.
Oh, not at all. And that's where his genius for moral ambiguity comes in. He loved gray areas. Take Psycho again. We start out following Marion Crane. She's stolen $40,000. She's definitely not an innocent victim.
Right, we're kind of rooting for her to get away with it, even though she did something wrong.
Exactly. We invest in her, this flawed person. Then she's brutally murdered. Suddenly, our identification is violently severed. The film then shifts focus to Norman Bates. And Hitchcock cleverly manipulates us into feeling, well, maybe not sympathy, but at least curiosity, maybe even a flicker of understanding towards this deeply disturbed young man before we fully grasp the horror.
It puts you in a really uncomfortable position as a viewer.
That's the goal. He forces this kind of what critics sometimes call guilt transference. We feel complicit, unsettled. He deliberately blurs the lines. Is Scotty in Vertigo a romantic hero or a creepy manipulator trying to recreate a dead woman?
Yeah, it's definitely not clear-cut.
It's rarely clear-cut.
Yeah.
And that ambiguity that forces you, the audience member, to grapple with uncomfortable questions about motive, morality, the darkness potentially lurking beneath ordinary surfaces. You don't walk out of a great Hitchcock film feeling clean and resolved. You walk out feeling, well, a bit implicated, maybe questioning things.
And that psychological weight, that unease, it wasn't just in the script or the acting. He used sound and the lack of sound to really amplify it, right?
Yeah.
Especially thinking about his work with Bernard Herrmann.
Oh, the Herrmann collaboration is legendary.
Yeah.
Absolutely vital. Herrmann scored Vertigo, Psycho, North by Northwest, The Birds. Well, he did the sound consultancy on The Birds. His music wasn't just background wallpaper.
No.
It was like another character driving the psychological state. Those screeching, stabbing violin sounds in the Psycho shower scene. Herrmann used only the string section of the orchestra for that score, giving it this incredibly shrill, nerve-jangling quality. It sounds like violence.
Yeah, it's inseparable from the image, unforgettable.
Totally. But Hitchcock was also a master of using silence, or just carefully controlled sound design. Think about The Birds. There's famously almost no traditional musical score in that film, especially after the attacks start.
Right, it's mostly just bird sounds and
Yeah,
silence.
Exactly. Electronically manipulated bird calls, flapping wings, eerie quiet, then sudden bursts of chaotic noise. The soundscape itself becomes the source of dread. The tension builds in the silences, in the anticipation of the next attack, the next unnatural bird cry. It proves that what you don't hear can be just as terrifying as a loud score, maybe even more so. He understood the power of auditory tension.
That control, again, orchestrating not just the visuals, but the entire sound experience, which leads back to this idea of his total narrative control. We talked about camera tricks and editing, but how did he control the information the audience gets? How did that build suspense?
Well, this is where his famous analogy comes in, the bomb under the table. He explained it in interviews. He said, imagine two people sitting at a table having a conversation about, I don't know, baseball. Suddenly, a bomb hidden under the table explodes. That surprise, the audience is shocked for a few seconds.
Right, a jump scare, basically.
Pretty much. But, he said, imagine the same scene. Two people talking about baseball. But this time, the audience knows there's a bomb under the table and it has a timer ticking down. Say 5 minutes left. The characters don't know, they just keep chatting away.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
Now, those 5 minutes of ordinary conversation become absolutely agonizing for the audience. You're screaming internally, get out, stop talking about baseball. That's suspense, giving the audience information that the characters don't have.
So you know the danger is there, you see the clock ticking, but you're powerless. Just waiting.
Precisely. It's wonderfully manipulative, isn't it? He uses editing and framing constantly to control that flow of information. Maybe a quick shot shows us something the hero doesn't see. Maybe a lingering close-up on someone's face tells us they're lying, even when their words sound innocent. He's always managing what we know versus what the characters know, creating that gap. And that gap is where suspense lives and breathes. Every decision when to cut, what to show, what not to show, was calculated to keep you leaning forward, anxious, involved.
It really was a kind of psychological engineering through film.
You could definitely call it that.
Okay, so we've dug into the techniques, the themes, the control. Let's talk about the ripple effect, his legacy. We know he's influential, but what does that actually look like today? How do we see Hitchcock's ghost, so to speak, in modern movies and TV.
Oh, the ghost is everywhere. It's not even subtle sometimes. I mean, almost any director working today in suspense or psychological thrillers or even action films with tense sequences. They're standing on his shoulders. They're using his language.
Can you give some examples, like specific directors or maybe even films?
Sure. Think about Christopher Nolan. His films often play with time, with holding back information, revealing things piece by piece to create this intellectual suspense, right? Like in Memento or Inception. That intricate control of narrative information, that's a direct evolution of Hitchcock's bomb under the table idea, just maybe more complex structurally.
Okay, I can see that.
Or someone like David Fincher. His visual style is often very controlled, precise, and sometimes quite cold. And his films, like Sesamin or Gone Girl or even Zodiac, they delve into obsession, voyeurism, the dark side lurking beneath normal life. That meticulous framing, that thematic territory, it feels very connected to Hitchcock, to things like Rear Window, or maybe even the mood of The Lodger.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's not just copying shots, it's inheriting a way of looking at the world, a way of building tension.
Exactly, it's about the approach. And beyond just technique, he did something maybe even more fundamental.
Yeah.
He elevated the thriller genre itself. Well, before Hitchcock really hit his stride, thrillers, mysteries, they were often seen as, disposable entertainment, B-movies maybe, fun but not serious art.
Right, genre stuff.
Genre stuff. Hitchcock came along and proved you could make a film that was incredibly suspenseful, hugely entertaining, made tons of money, and was also artistically brilliant, critically acclaimed, exploring really complex psychological and moral territory.
He showed they weren't mutually exclusive. Art and commerce, suspense and depth.
Precisely. He smashed that distinction. He made it okay, even prestigious, to work in the thriller genre. That idea that a genre film can be both incredibly popular and deeply resonant, that's the holy grail for so many filmmakers today. And Hitchcock really paved the way for that. He showed you could explore the darkest corners of the human psyche within the framework of a nail-biting plot.
That's a massive contribution. And his influence wasn't just contained to movie theaters, right? He made a significant move into television, too. We have to talk about Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Oh, absolutely. That's another fascinating chapter. Alfred Hitchcock Presents, which started in 1955, and ran in various forms for about a decade. It was groundbreaking for television.
How was TV different back then?
Well, think about early TV. A lot of it was visually quite basic, often filmed like stage plays, kind of static, not a lot of cinematic flair. Budgets were tight, schedules were fast.
Like filmed radio almost.
Sort of, yeah. Hitchcock, using his movie star clout and his very specific brand, brought a level of cinematic quality and storytelling sophistication to the small screen that was pretty revolutionary for a weekly show. Each episode was like a mini Hitchcock film, a compact little thriller, usually with a neat, often darkly ironic twist at the end. He applied those principles of tight pacing, suspense, clever editing, subjective viewpoints, all crammed into 25 minutes.
And he himself became the face of the show, didn't he? With those famous introductions and outros.
Oh, completely. The silhouette, the droll, macabre sense of humor. Good evening. That was pure genius branding. He wasn't just slapping his name on it. He was embedding his whole persona, his master of suspense identity, into the very fabric of the show.
It made the show an event each week.
It really did. And it basically taught a whole generation of viewers, and maybe more importantly, TV writers and producers, how to do suspense well on television. It showed that TV didn't have to be just cheap laughs or bland drama. It could be clever, stylish, and genuinely thrilling. You could draw a direct line from Alfred Hitchcock Presents to countless anthology shows that followed, right up to things like Black Mirror today. Any show that relies on a clever premise, tight plotting, and a sting in the tail owes a huge debt to what Hitchcock pioneered on TV. He spread his influence way beyond the cinema screen, right into people's living rooms, week after week.
It really cemented him not just as a great director, but as the actual brand name for suspense itself.
Couldn't said it better myself.
Yeah.
He became the genre in the public imagination.
So, wrapping this all up then, what does this mean for us now? For you listening as you're watching the latest thriller series or that classic film, what's the big takeaway?
Well, I think it's clear Hitchcock's grip on us, that timeless tension. It comes down to a few key things. It's that deliberate, strategic control over your emotions as a viewer. It's his fascination with moral gray areas, making you question things. And it's that incredible technical skill, the camera work, the editing, the sound, that literally wrote the rules for modern suspense. He didn't just grab our attention. He fundamentally shaped how stories grab our attention.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought or a little challenge for you listening. The next time you find yourself really hooked by a thriller, whether it's old or new, try to peek behind the curtain a little. Ask yourself, How are they doing this? Is the camera showing you something specific, putting you in a character's shoes? Is the editing making you feel jumpy or creating dread? Are they holding back information, making you desperate to know what happens next, even if the actual secret, the MacGuffin, isn't the main point? Because chances are, when you start looking closely at the mechanics of how that suspense is being built, you'll see the fingerprints of Alfred Hitchcock all over it. Those techniques he honed decades ago are still the bedrock of how we tell thrilling stories today. That's his power, still working its magic.
A fantastic way to think about it. Watch like Hitchcock. Thank you so much for unpacking all of that for us. It's clear his shadow looms large, and for good reason. Next time on Trending Unpacked, we turn from suspense itself to a star who lived in layers of nuance, Diane Keaton exploring her life, style, and impact on film. We'll see you then.